Virgo. The argument started at 11:47 on a Tuesday morning, not in your living room, not in your inbox, in a break room 3 floors below an office you have never visited, between two people you have never met, over a coffee machine that has been broken since March. One of them, a woman with a chipped ceramic mug and a name tag that has faded from too many washes, said your name, just like that, casually, as if you were a topic, a subject for debate. A piece of gossip with enough mileage to survive another rotation around the water cooler. And the other person, the one who had been stirring their tea with the slow, precise motion of someone trying to keep their hands from shaking, set the spoon down with a sound that was not loud but was absolutely final. They looked up. They did not raise their voice. They simply said, with a calm that made the fluorescent lights seem to flicker, "You do not get to talk about Virgo like that. Not here, not ever." And if you need me to explain why, I can clear my afternoon. The room went quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a dropped glass before it shatters. The kind of quiet where everyone suddenly remembers they have emails to check. And just like that, another battle in a war you thought had ended months ago flared back to life, right there, over stale pastries and a microwave that smells like burnt popcorn. While you were sitting at your desk, or folding laundry, or staring out a window wondering why you still felt the faint echo of a conflict you had already packed away in a box labeled finished. But it is not finished, Virgo. Not even close. And if your stomach just dropped, if you felt a familiar heat rise behind your eyes that tastes like exhaustion mixed with something dangerously close to hope, then you need to hear this. Not because it will comfort you, because it will arm you. Hit that like button if you are tired of being the last to know that your name is still being spoken in rooms you have never entered. Subscribe, because this is where the unreported wars get their dispatches. And drop the word standing in the comments, not as a trend, as a fact, as the only response that makes sense when you discover that an army you never enlisted is still holding the line in your name. Now, let me tell you what is actually happening out there, because you have been operating under a dangerous misconception. You have been telling yourself that the story is dead, that the drama has expired, that the people who mischaracterized you, who twisted your silence into guilt and your boundaries into cruelty, who built a neat little narrative around your departure that made them feel better about the mess they made. You have been telling yourself that those people moved on, that they found new targets, that your name, once so useful as currency in their social economy, has been devalued by time and replaced by fresher gossip. You have been walking through your days with the careful, guarded peace of someone who believes the battlefield has been abandoned. The grass has grown over the trenches. The birds have nested in the empty helmets. The war is history. You are wrong. The war did not end. It went underground. It became guerrilla warfare, fought in comment sections and parking lots and family dinners where someone brings up your name over the roast chicken and suddenly finds themselves corrected by a voice that has been waiting months for exactly this opportunity. The people who loved you, the ones who truly saw what happened, they did not lay down their arms when you retreated. They did not sign a treaty of polite forgetting. They took one look at the lies that were still circulating, at the comfortable mythology that painted you as the villain and the people who hurt you as the wounded, and they decided with a quiet, immovable fury that would surprise you if you ever witnessed it, that the record would not stand. Not on their watch, not while they still had breath, and a functioning memory and access to the people who were still peddling the old story like counterfeit bills. I need you to understand the scale of this, because your humility will try to minimize it. You will think, oh, a few friends probably defended me once or twice. No, this is not a few friends. This is a network, a loose, unofficial, completely organic coalition of people who have made your honor their personal unpaid internship. They are everywhere. They are in the workplace of the person who spread the rumor about your so-called attitude problem. They are in the family group chat where your name still comes up like a bad penny. They are in the social circle of the ex who has been telling a sanitized version of the breakup that conveniently omits the part where they were the architect of their own loneliness. And they are not just defending you, they are prosecuting, they are cross-examining, they are walking around with mental files of dates, screenshots, conversations, and eyewitness testimony, and they are deploying this evidence with the patience of historians correcting a false textbook. Let me give you the specifics, because you need to know what is being spent on your behalf. There is your colleague, the one who sat in the meeting where your name was mentioned in passing, not even maliciously, just lazily, as an example of someone who could not handle the pressure. It was a throwaway line, a joke, almost, the kind of thing people say to fill air. And this colleague, who has watched you arrive early and stay late and fix problems that were not yours to fix, who has seen you swallow criticism that was not earned and absorb responsibility that was not yours to carry, this colleague set their pen down. They turned in their chair. They looked at the speaker with an expression that made the temperature in the room drop by exactly 5 degrees, and they said, "That is not what happened. That is not who Virgo is. And if you are going to use them as a cautionary tale, you should probably know that the real story ends with them being the only adult in the room while the rest of us were still figuring out how to open the spreadsheet." The silence that followed was not awkward. It was educational. And nobody in that meeting has used your name casually since. There is your neighbor, the one who overheard a conversation at the mailbox, a conversation between two people who used to know you, who were trading theories about why you moved, why you disappeared, why you could not hack it. The neighbor who has borrowed your ladder and accepted your tomatoes and watched you carry groceries for the elderly resident upstairs without being asked. This neighbor closed their mailbox with a clang that interrupted the conversation. They did not raise their voice. They simply stated facts. Virgo moved because they were being suffocated by people who mistook their oxygen for a draft. And if either of you had paid attention instead of paying lip service, you would know that the only thing Virgo could not hack was the constant, grinding disrespect of being treated like an emotional vending machine. Then they walked away. They did not wait for a response. They had delivered the mail. The message and the truth were delivered with it. There is your cousin, the one who has been sitting at holiday tables for 2 years, listening to relatives speculate about your choices, your relationships, your supposed failures, your difficult nature. The cousin who watched you grow up, who knows the exact texture of your loyalty, who remembers the birthday parties you organized and the crises you managed and the way you always showed up, even when showing up cost you everything. This cousin has stopped passing the potatoes. They have started passing verdicts. They have looked across the cranberry sauce and said, with a voice that carries the weight of every Thanksgiving where you were the one washing dishes while everyone else napped, "You do not get to wonder why Virgo stopped coming to these things. Virgo stopped coming because every time they sat in that chair, they left with less of themselves than they arrived with. And if you want them back, the menu is not the problem. The problem is that none of you ever learned how to say thank you. The turkey got cold. Nobody asked for seconds of that conversation. But nobody has repeated the old theory since. And then there is the big one. The person closest to the center. The one who has been fighting the longest and the hardest, not because they are angry, but because they are grieving. They have been in the trenches since the beginning, and they have no intention of leaving until every last lie has been dug out of the ground and left to bleach in the sun. This person has had conversations that have ended friendships. They have sent messages that could not be unsent. They have stood in rooms and listened to the revised history of your shared past, the version where you were too much, too cold, too demanding, too complicated, and they have systematically, methodically, almost surgically dismantled every chapter. They have not done this with shouting. They have done it with evidence, with dates, with the exact recollection of who said what and when and why the context matters. They have become a walking, breathing archive of your integrity, and they are lending out their memory to anyone who will listen. They confronted the ex, not with drama, with a calendar. They sat across from the person who once claimed you were impossible to please, and they read aloud a list. The list of every time you compromised, every time you adjusted, every time you swallowed your own preference so that someone else could have theirs. They did not raise their voice. They simply read until the ex looked at the floor, until the ex stopped arguing, until the ex, cornered by facts they could not dispute, finally whispered, I know what I did. It was not a victory, it was a reckoning. And the person fighting for you did not celebrate. They simply closed the notebook and said, then stop telling people she was the problem, or he was the problem. Stop telling people Virgo did not try, because I was there, and the record does not support your story. They confronted the friend group, the ones who let you drift away because maintaining the friendship required them to examine their own behavior, and examination was too expensive. They were told in a group chat that had been dormant for months that your silence was not abandonment, it was survival. That your absence was not a mystery to be solved with lazy theories about your personality, but a direct consequence of their collective failure to see you as a human being with limits instead of a resource with infinite capacity. The message was long, it was detailed, it named names, it quoted conversations, and when someone tried to reply with deflection, with jokes, with the old reliable, we were all going through stuff, they were met with a single sentence that ended the thread. Virgo was going through stuff too. The difference is Virgo never made it your problem. You made it theirs. This is still happening, Virgo, right now, while you are reading this, while you are making your coffee and checking your email and trying to decide if today is the day you finally stop looking over your shoulder. Someone, somewhere, is correcting a lie about you. Someone is refusing to let the old narrative stand unchallenged. Someone is spending their own social capital, their own peace, their own reputation for being agreeable to make sure that the version of you surviving in the mouths of others matches the version of you that actually exists. And they are not doing it for gratitude. They are not doing it because they expect you to come back and reward them with your presence. They are doing it because they looked at the alternative, the world where your name becomes shorthand for a cautionary tale, and they found it morally unbearable. You need to know why this has not died, because part of you is exhausted by it. Part of you wants the whole story to be buried. You want to move on. You want the clean break. You want the luxury of being forgotten by the people who hurt you, because being remembered by them, even as a villain, keeps a thread tied between you that you would rather cut. And you are not wrong to want that. You are entitled to your peace. You are entitled to walk away from the drama and never look back. But the people fighting for you, they cannot let it die for one simple reason. The lie about you is not just about you, it is about them too. When someone mischaracterizes you, when they take your boundaries and call them walls, when they take your exhaustion and call it coldness, when they take your self-respect and call it selfishness, they are not just rewriting your history, they are rewriting the history of everyone who loved you correctly. They are making the people who saw your worth, who respected your limits, who cherished your exacting, meticulous Virgo heart, they are making those people look like fools for believing in you. The lie cannot survive in isolation. It has to infect the whole ecosystem. It has to make everyone who witnessed your truth doubt their own memory. And the people who are still fighting, they are fighting because they refuse to let their own experience be gaslit. They refuse to let their love for you be recategorized as naive loyalty. They are defending their own sanity as much as they are defending your name. That is why it continues. That is why when you think the dust has settled, someone is still sweeping. Someone is still scrubbing the graffiti off the walls. Someone is still standing in the town square with a megaphone they never asked for, reading the true version of events to an audience that would rather believe the simpler lie. It is not stubbornness. It is not obsession. It is the moral immune system of people who know that if they let this infection spread, it will eventually reach someone who never knew you at all, someone who will hear your name and flinch before they ever get the chance to meet the real you. And that, to them, is unacceptable. Now, I need to talk about what this means for you, because knowledge is not always comfort. Knowing that a war is still being fought in your name does not automatically feel like a blessing. It can feel like a burden. It can feel like you are still tethered to a past you wanted to outrun. It can feel like your peace is being held hostage by people who cannot stop picking at a scab. And if you feel that way, Virgo, if you feel the exhaustion of a conflict that should have ended but keeps generating new skirmishes, I need you to hear this with every cell of your being. You are not responsible for their fight. You did not ask them to enlist. You did not draft them. You do not owe them a medal, a parade, or a lifetime of gratitude that keeps you chained to a narrative you are ready to transcend. Their courage is theirs. Their choice is theirs. And your freedom to move on is absolute. But I also need you to understand the gift, because in a world where most people will believe whatever version of a story requires the least effort, in a world where the easy lie travels faster than the complicated truth, in a world where your absence makes you a convenient target for projection and revisionism, there are people who have looked at all of that and said no. There are people who have accepted the social cost of being the one who will not let it go, who have been called bitter, called obsessed, called unable to move on because they refuse to let the lie stand. And they have accepted those labels. They have worn them like armor because to them, being called bitter for defending the truth is preferable to being called mature for accepting a lie. These people are your evidence, Virgo. They are the proof that you were never crazy, that your version of events was never the delusion of a wounded ego. That the love you gave was seen, was registered, was remembered in enough detail to withstand cross-examination. When you lie awake at night wondering if you were the problem, if your standards were impossible, if your need for respect was actually just a need for control, you can remember this. You can remember that there are human beings out there who have made it their unpaid, uncelebrated, often lonely mission to make sure that the historical record reflects what actually happened, that you tried, that you gave, that you stayed longer than you should have, and left only when staying would have required you to stop being yourself. That is not nothing. That is everything. That is the difference between a wound that festers and a wound that finally closes because the infection has been cleaned out by hands other than your own. So what do you do with this information? You do not pick up a sword and rejoin the battle. You have done enough fighting. You have fought for your dignity, for your boundaries, for your right to exist in spaces that did not shrink you, and you are tired. Your hands are tired. Your voice is tired. The part of you that used to rise to every argument is now sitting quietly in a corner, and that is not weakness. That is wisdom. The war being fought on your behalf is not a war you need to win personally. It is a war that is being won so that you never have to fight it again, so that when you walk into a room 5 years from now, the air will be clear, the lies will have died from lack of oxygen, and the only thing left standing will be the truth, propped up by the stubborn, beautiful, completely voluntary labor of people who decided that your name was worth defending. Your job is to let them. Your job is to accept that you are loved in absentia, that your absence has not made you forgotten, but has made you a cause, that the people who truly saw you are not waiting for you to return and validate their efforts. They are simply doing what love demands when love is real. They are keeping the record straight. They are keeping the gate. They are keeping the memory of your goodness alive in a world that would rather bury it under convenient fiction. And your other job, the harder one, is to stop checking for smoke. Stop scanning the horizon for evidence that the war continues. Stop asking mutual acquaintances if your name still comes up. Stop lurking in digital spaces where the old battles are still being waged. You have been given the gift of a rear guard. Let them guard your rear. Turn your face forward. Walk toward the life that is waiting for you. The one that has no room for the old cast of characters. The one that is being built from materials that have never been touched by their lies. The fight will continue without your supervision. The soldiers do not need you at the command post. They need you to be free. They need you to thrive. They need you to become so undeniably, radiantly, completely yourself that the lies about who you were become laughable in comparison to the truth of who you are becoming. I want to leave you with an image because images are what remain when the noise of battle fades. Imagine a library at closing time. The lights are being turned off, one by one, in sections that no longer matter. The shelves are being locked. The patrons are being gently guided toward the exit. And in the basement, in a room with no windows and a single bulb that never goes out, there is a table. On that table sits a book. It is not a bestseller. It is not displayed in the front window. It is a plain book with a plain cover, and inside it are the true events, the unedited transcripts, the testimony of the people who were there, the facts that contradict the popular story. And there is a librarian. They are not young. They are not seeking glory. They are simply doing their job. They dust the book, they check the binding, they make sure that if anyone ever comes looking for the truth, the book will be there, intact, ready to be read. They have been doing this for years. They will continue doing it until they are too old to climb the stairs. And they do it because they know that some books are not meant to be popular, they are meant to be accurate. They are meant to survive. That librarian is every person still fighting for you. That book is your life. And the library is the world, which will eventually, inevitably, come looking for what is real. Go now. Leave the basement to the librarians. Walk up the stairs. Step out into the light that is waiting on the other side of the heavy front doors. Do not look back to see if the light in the basement is still on. Trust that it is. Trust that the book is safe. Trust that your name, your truth, your complicated, exacting, completely misunderstood heart is being guarded by people who need no thanks to do what is right. The war is not yours anymore. It never really was. It was always a war for truth, and you were just the territory. But the territory survives, the territory thrives, and the maps are being corrected, one conversation at a time, in rooms you will never enter, by hands you will never shake, for reasons that need no explanation beyond this. You mattered. You matter. And some debts are